All right. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about Objective 11.1, the anatomy of the kidney, including the anatomy of a nephron. Do you recognize this image? It is the Lafayette Wastewater Treatment Plant over on Wabash Avenue. And I think that a wastewater treatment plant is a helpful analogy to the function of the urinary system. So the treatment plant basically purifies our water. It takes bad stuff out of it, and that's what the urinary system, specifically our kidneys, do to our bloodstream. The kidneys remove the bad stuff from the blood, and then we pee out those waste products as urine. So if you remember me saying that pee is basically filtered blood, hopefully that will finally start to make a little bit of sense this unit. Overview, these are the kidneys. And then notice they have this glandular tissue on top of them. Those are your adrenal glands that make adrenaline, get us all excited. Each kidney connects to this tube right here called a ureter. The ureter carries, so the kidneys make the urine, and then the urine travels through a ureter to the bladder right here and out the urethra. So now we're looking at an image like a person has been cut in half, and like there's one of their kidneys and there's the other kidney, and that would be the vertebra and the spine right there. And if we look at this, we notice something weird. This hole right here, the peritoneum, would be where the intestines are and like the liver and the stomach and all of those digestive organs. The kidneys are not in that same section. So we describe the kidneys as retroperitoneal because the kidneys are actually behind where all the digestive organs are. And if you look at this image over here, you can see they really are like on our backs. Like it seems like they're almost outside the body. Notice that the right kidney is a little bit lower than the left. Can we picture what organ would be right here? If you're imagining the liver, that's correct. So because of the liver, the right kidney is a little bit lower than the left. This is the anatomy that I want you guys to be familiar with, and I'm going to show you it on visible body. Here's the information if you want to be able to go there on your own. We're going to start by splitting the kidney into 3 sections, basically the outside, the middle, and the inside. The outer part right here is called the cortex. By the way, renal means kidney. That's why every word in this unit pretty much has renal in front of it. The middle part of the kidney is called medulla, so that's kind of nice for us to remember. Medulla is the middle part. And then finally, the innermost part is called the pelvis. So all this stuff over here makes up our renal pelvis. So the outside is the cortex, the inner part or the middle part is the medulla, and then the inner part over here is called the pelvis. And then if I can highlight a couple of features, starting with the renal pyramids right here, those triangular shaped things. This is where the urine is actually made, and then the urine is going to like pour into the pelvis. The space in between each pyramid is called a column. It doesn't really do much except provide support for the rest of it. And then if we switch back over to the pyramids, do you see how each pyramid is like connecting to one of these tubes? Those tubes are called calyx, and they are basically the channels that are going to collect the urine and then dump it into the pelvis over here. And the pelvis connects to a ureter, and then that ureter is going to travel over to the bladder. It's worth mentioning that every single time your heart beats, 25% of that blood goes directly to the kidneys. That's an insanely high amount. So kidneys are working really hard for us. And if we can review a little bit of the cardiovascular system, can we picture blood leaving the left ventricle and going into the aorta and then traveling through arteries until it eventually reaches the renal artery, flows through the kidney until it reaches capillaries. The capillaries in the kidney are called the glomerulus or the glomerular capillaries. And then after it's been filtered, the blood will go back through veins, eventually leaving through the renal vein back to the heart. Now we're going to talk about the part of the kidney that actually cleanses the blood. Sometimes it's called the functional unit of the kidney because it performs the function of taking the bad stuff out of the blood and making urine. It's the nephron. You have about 1 million nephrons in each kidney, so they are microscopic, very, very small. And each nephron has two parts, something called the renal corpuscle and the renal tubule. The renal corpuscle is that circular structure up there, and if you can see, we have an artery that's leading into capillaries. So the renal corpuscle holds the capillaries. Basically, the blood is going to exit the bloodstream right here in the renal corpuscle, and then it's going to enter the other part of the nephron, the renal tubule. And then as it travels through all these little tubes, it will be cleansed and filtered. This last structure over here is not part of the nephron. It's called the collecting duct, and it takes the urine. So only the nephron is involved with forming the urine. The collecting duct is just a tube that urine travels through. Now let's take a closer look at the renal corpuscle. The renal corpuscle also has two parts, the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule. The glomerulus are the capillaries right here, so like this ball of tangled capillaries, and the glomerular capsule is the outer part, the purple part in this image, kind of like a shell or a capsule holding the capillaries in. And the glomerular capsule also has two layers, a parietal layer, which is this outer layer right here, like the shell, and a visceral layer. The visceral layer is actually these purple cells right here. So this red thing is the glomerulus, the capillaries. The visceral layer is literally like cells hugging the capillaries. And if you notice, they have the funny shaped feet. I wonder why. If we're picturing what needs to happen right here, the blood is going to enter the glomerulus, and then the blood needs to leave the bloodstream so it can go through the rest of the nephron to be filtered. So the filtering starts right here, with that visceral layer only letting small things be able to slip out through the layers. Pretty cool example of structure function. Then, after the blood kind of leaves through the renal corpuscle, it's going to enter the renal tubule. And the renal tubule has three parts. First is the proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal means near, so it's near the glomerulus. And convoluted means kind of like windy or meandering. So lots of surface area for filtering to be able to occur. After the filtrate goes through the PCT, it's going to enter the nephron loop, or the loop of Henle. So it's going to go down here into the medulla and then come back up into the cortex through the distal convoluted tubule. And then it will empty into that collecting duct. Here's a different image of a collecting duct. Let's orient ourselves for a second. So here's a glomerulus, which means this must be the PCT. This is the nephron loop, and this is the DCT going into the collecting duct. And here's a simplified view of a nephron or of a renal tubule also emptying into that same collecting duct. And then down here, can you picture like that right here would be like a renal pyramid, and now it's dumping into a calyx, which would go into the pelvis and then make its way from the ureters to the bladder. And there's a book picture if you're interested in more of the structures. I'm sorry that we don't get to dissect a kidney. Here's what they look like. Anything red was a artery, anything blue was a vein, and anything yellow is where like urine could be. Really stunning pictures. Here's a video you might enjoy, and please let me know what questions you have. Thanks for watching.